It was a Saturday morning, the 19th of March 2016. For most of the country, it was the start of a weekend. But for John Podesta, the chairman of Hillary Clinton's presidential campaign, there were no weekends. The primaries were raging. The pressure was mounting. His inbox was a river of strategy memos, donor requests, and press clippings that never stopped flowing. At 11:43 a.m., a single email pinged into his account. The subject line was urgent, highlighted in red warning colors. It read, "Someone has your password." The body of the email claimed to be from Google. It detailed a sign-in attempt from IP address 134.249.139.239 located in Ukraine. The message was clear, professional, and terrifyingly standard. It said, "Google stopped this sign-in attempt. You should change your password immediately." Below the text sat a blue button, "Change password." It looked legitimate. It used the correct Google branding. It used the right font. To the tired eyes of a campaign veteran, it looked like just another administrative hurdle in a high-stakes digital life. But it wasn't Google. Behind that email wasn't a security algorithm, but a human operator sitting thousands of miles away, likely in a windowless room in Moscow. They were waiting, watching. Hidden inside that blue button was a bit.ly link, a shortened URL that would bypass spam filters and lead Podesta not to Google's secure server, but to a trap. Podesta didn't click it immediately. His team was cautious. An aide forwarded the email to the campaign's IT department to check its validity. The IT staffer replied, but in his haste, he made a typo that would echo through history. He meant to write, "This is an illegitimate email." Instead, he wrote, "This is a legitimate email." With that green light, the button was clicked. Credentials were typed, and in less than a second, the digital doors to the inner sanctum of the Democratic campaign swung wide open. This isn't just a story about a hack. This is the story of how a single typo, a fake button, and a phantom email exposed the fragility of modern democracy. This is how one phishing email hacked the world. To understand the catastrophe of March 2016, we have to understand the battlefield of 2015. The American political machine had evolved. By the mid-2010 seconds, campaigns were no longer run on handshakes, they were run on data. Email was the nervous system of modern politics. Strategies, opposition research, private donor lists, and personal grievances all lived on servers. But while American campaigns were building digital databases, Russian intelligence was building digital weapons. For years, the US intelligence community had been tracking two specific adversaries. They didn't have names like the Joker or Moriarty. They had alphanumeric designations that terrified cybersecurity professionals. The first was APT-29, known as Cozy Bear. The second was APT-28, known as Fancy Bear. These weren't teenage hackers in a basement. These were advanced persistent threats. APT's state-sponsored cyber espionage units and linked to the Russian Federation. Cozy Bear, associated with the FSB, the successor to the KGB, was the silent thief. They moved quietly, infiltrating networks to spy, gather intelligence, and stay hidden for years. They were the ghosts in the machine. Fancy Bear, associated with the GRU, Russian military intelligence, was different. They were the smash and grab crew. They were aggressive, military-minded, and focused on disruption. By late 2015, both groups had trained their sights on the United States. They'd already successfully compromised the State Department, the White House, unclassified networks, and the Joint Chiefs of Staff. But the 2016 election presented a new, softer target. The Democratic National Committee, DNC. The DNC wasn't the Pentagon. It didn't have military-grade encryption or soldiers guarding the server rooms. It was a non-profit political organization staffed by overworked aides and volunteers, often using personal laptops and Gmail accounts to conduct sensitive business. It was the perfect storm. The attackers were sophisticated military units. The defenders were political strategists. In the shadows of the internet, the GRU began a massive spear phishing campaign. Unlike regular phishing, which casts a wide net, spear phishing is a sniper shot. It targets specific individuals with personalized bait. They research their targets, They learned the names of the IT staff, they mimicked the language of Google security alerts, they set the trap, and the American political system, distracted by the noise of the primaries, had no idea that the war had already begun. Let's go back to that moment on March 19, the moment the link was clicked. When John Podesta's password was typed into that fake Google login page, it didn't log him into his account. It sent his credentials, his username, and his password directly to a server controlled by Fancy Bear. The hackers moved with terrifying speed. Almost immediately, they logged into Podesta's actual Gmail account. They didn't just read the emails, they began exfiltrating them. Over 60,000 emails, years of correspondence, nuclear strategy documents, gossip about donors, internal conflicts within the Clinton Foundation, risotto recipes. Everything was sucked out of the account and stored on GRU-controlled servers. But they didn't stop at Podesta. This was a multi-pronged attack. The GRU had also targeted the DNC's central network. Once inside the DNC network, the hackers deployed a piece of malware known as X-Agent. X-Agent is a remote access Trojan. Think of it as a digital parasite. Once installed on a computer, it can turn on the microphone. It can take screenshots. It can log every key you press on the keyboard. It can upload files. It allowed the Russian operatives to see exactly what the DNC staffers were seeing. They could read the opposition research on Donald Trump before the press did. They could see the financial health of the party. The breach was total. But the most dangerous part of the attack was its silence. There were no sirens, no screens flashing "access denied" to the DNC employees. The internet was just a little slow that day. Maybe the printer was acting up. For weeks, the hackers lived inside the network. They had dwell time. This is the nightmare scenario for cybersecurity experts. The attackers weren't just visiting, they had moved in. They mapped the network, escalated their privileges, and prepared for the next phase. They weren't just stealing data anymore, they were weaponizing it. Secrets rarely stay secret in the digital age. By late April, the DNC IT team noticed something was wrong. Computers were behaving erratically. They called in the cavalry. CrowdStrike, a top-tier cybersecurity firm. CrowdStrike's team, led by Dmitry Alperovich, installed their sensors, Falcon, on the DNC network. Almost instantly, the dashboard lit up. Alperovich later described it as watching a burglary in progress. They saw two different Russian groups, Cozy Bear and Fancy Bear, inside the network. Ironically, the two Russian groups didn't seem to know the other was there. They were stealing the same files. On the 14th of June 2016, the story broke. The Washington Post published the headline, "Russian government hackers penetrated DNC, stole opposition research on Trump." The DNC had tried to get ahead of the story. They admitted the hack, blamed Russia, and claimed they had secured the network, but the attackers had a contingency plan. A plan that would change the nature of information warfare. One day later, a blog post appeared online. The author called himself Guccifer 2. Zero claimed to be a lone hacker, a Romanian freedom fighter. He mocked the idea that it was Russia. He called CrowdStrike incompetent. To prove his access, he released a trove of documents stolen from the DNC. The media was captivated. Was this a lone wolf? Cybersecurity experts looked closer. They analyzed the metadata, the digital fingerprints of the stolen documents. They found that the files had been edited by a user with the name Felix Dzerzhinsky in Cyrillic. Dzerzhinsky was the founder of the Soviet secret police. They found that the documents were saved using Russian language settings. They found that Guccifer 2 couldn't speak Romanian when interviewed by journalists. Guccifer 2 was a sock puppet, a digital mask worn by the GRU to launder the stolen data and distract from the Russian government's involvement. Then came the sledgehammer. On July 22, 3 days before the Democratic National Convention, WikiLeaks hit the publish button. 19,252 emails, 8,034 attachments. The impact was nuclear. The emails revealed DNC officials privately discussing how to undermine Bernie Sanders' campaign. They showed donors being courted for access. They showed the ugly, unvarnished sausage-making of politics. The timing was calculated for maximum damage. The convention, meant to be a coronation for Hillary Clinton, turned into a scene of chaos. Protests erupted on the floor. DNC chair Debbie Wasserman Schultz was forced to resign in disgrace before the convention even properly began. The hackers hadn't just stolen data, they had successfully incited conflict between the progressive and centrist wings of the party. They had manufactured political chaos using the target's own words. The election came and went. The result is history. But the investigation into how it happened was just beginning. In January 2017, the US intelligence community declassified a bombshell report. Their conclusion was unanimous. Vladimir Putin had ordered an influence campaign aimed at the US presidential election. But the smoking gun came later, via special counsel Robert Mueller. The Mueller investigation peeled back the layers of the internet to find the specific humans responsible. They traced the servers, they followed the Bitcoin payments used to buy domain names and VPNs. In July 2018, the Department of Justice issued an indictment that read like a spy novel. They charged 12 officers of the GRU by name. The indictment detailed their units, Unit 26165 and Unit 74455. It detailed their addresses in Moscow. It listed the exact times they sat down at their computers to type the phishing emails. The investigation revealed that the hackers used a technique called Typo squatting. They bought domains that looked almost real. Instead of google.com, they might register google-security-setting.com. We learned that they used cryptocurrency to anonymously rent servers in Arizona and Illinois, bringing the attack onto US soil to speed up the data transfer. We learned that this wasn't just hacking. It was active measures. Active measures is a Soviet term for political warfare. It includes propaganda, deception, sabotage, and destabilization. In the Cold War, this meant planting fake stories in newspapers. In 2016, it meant hacking a server and leaking the truth at the most damaging moment possible. The Podesta email was the digital equivalent of a Watergate break-in, but executed from 5,000 miles away, with zero physical risk to the perpetrators. The dust has settled on 2016, but the landscape of the internet has been permanently altered. The Podesta hack became a case study taught in every cybersecurity classroom in the world. It was a wake-up call that technology had outpaced our psychology. Before 2016, cybersecurity was seen as an it problem. It was about firewalls and antivirus software. After 2016, it became a human problem. The legacy of that single click is profound. It ushered in the era of multi-factor authentication, MFA. If John Podesta had two-step verification enabled a code sent to his phone, the hackers would have had the password, but they couldn't have entered the account. That one extra step would have stopped the entire operation. It changed how governments treat cyber attacks. Elections are now designated as critical infrastructure, protected with the same vigilance as the power grid or the water supply. But the attackers have evolved too. Today, phishing emails are no longer full of typos and bad grammar. They are written by generative AI, capable of mimicking the writing style of your boss or your spouse. Deepfake audio is being used to fake phone calls from CEOs authorizing wire transfers. The GRU is still active. Fancy Bear is still hunting. But now, they are joined by state actors from China, Iran, and North Korea, as well as criminal ransomware gangs holding hospitals hostage. The volume is staggering. Google now blocks more than 100 million phishing attempts every single day. The DNC hack proved that you don't need missiles to destabilize a superpower. You don't need an army to sow discord. All you need is a clever subject line, a fake button, and one person, in a moment of distraction, to make a mistake. On that Saturday morning in March 2016, John Podesta wasn't trying to be careless. The IT staffer wasn't trying to be negligent. They were just people, functioning in a high-stress environment, trusting the screen in front of them. And that is the terrifying truth of the digital age. We build fortresses of code. We spend billions on encryption. We build firewalls that can stop a digital army. But the entire system ultimately relies on the person sitting in the chair. The story of the DNC hack is a reminder that the most sophisticated vulnerability in any network isn't software. It's trust. The hackers hacked the human, not the machine. So, the next time your phone buzzes, the next time an email asks you to act now, The next time a link looks just a little bit important, pause. Because if one click can change the course of history, imagine what the next one could do.